This is the There Is Another Way podcast from SpencerBruce.com. Making life work as a creative. Hi there, boys and girls. How are you all doing? Brucey here with this week's There Is Another Way podcast. And yes, it is that time of year where we are stepping into Christmas. Yes, Christmas is coming if it isn't already Christmas where you are. So first of all, let me wish you and your families all a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope you are all in a place where you are with family and loved ones and having a great time. And for those of you who are, please do spare a thought for those who may be not in a great position this year and may not be as fortunate as we consider ourselves to be. So in this week's podcast, I'm going to be doing my usual end of the year review that I've done in previous years on the podcast and focus in on getting ready and getting set to go raring into 2019. I can't believe it's 2019, to be honest, coming up. Where did that happen? I just remember it being 1997 and now it's 20 plus years later. How on earth did that happen? Where did the time go? And that's kind of be the theme of the podcast this week in terms of thinking about time and making the most of the time that we have, because that is ultimately most crucial thing that we need to consider and do. Whatever you're doing in your job, if you are starting your own business, if you are being creative, whatever you're doing, it's all about time and maximizing that time to being as productive as possible, but not necessarily all about production, but enjoying it as much as possible. That's probably the main thing. And that's the overriding message from this podcast. Enjoy life. Life is too short. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy what you do. You have to be inspired to do what you have to do. Yes, there will be dark times. Yes, there will be dark days. That is a whole part of life. But we need to also embrace the positive times and the good times and make those happen more often and to counter the dark times. 2018, what a year. It has been a complete roller coaster of a year from me. The highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows all combined to make this year one that I will remember forever for amazing reasons and for not so amazing reasons as well. It's been a year of development. It's been a year of approaching, some low points in terms of work, particularly towards the beginning of the year, and then going towards the end of the year, ending on a high in terms of work and output and the things that are happening. It's been such a year. I mean, primarily the most important things that have happened this year are that I got engaged to the most amazing, beautiful, wonderful person who I'm kind of speechless when I think about her. And that was, the highest point of my year and, the highest point of my life, that she said yes to wanting to shackle herself with me for the future. At the same time, my dear beloved grandfather passed away, and that left me heartbroken. So my heart was overjoyed and broken at the same time. And that was kind of quite a difficult thing to deal with. The way I dealt with it was hopefully positively, knowing that my grandfather would have been overjoyed with the news and so happy. So that's one thing that gives me comfort. The other thing that gives me comfort was that he suffered a bit, but he didn't suffer too much, which just would have been awful to witness and bear. I miss him every day. I think of him every day. And my life will never be the same without him. But I know even in saying these words that he would be kicking my backside right now and saying, just get on with it. Get on with the show. Stop being morbid. Don't worry about me. Just get on with it. Pull your socks up and get it done. So in his honor, I will do that right now. So that, those are some of the little things that happened to me this year. My mother was also taken ill at the beginning of the year, towards the beginning of the year. Luckily, she's practically made a full recovery. Thank goodness for that she is kind of coming along well. A double whammy of bad things countered with positive, a very happy time ahead and looking forward to getting married in 2019. On the work front, one of the highlights of my year was getting to meet my absolute hero in person, Steve Vai. He's been my teacher over the years. I did a course with him at Berkeley. Didn't actually get to meet him physically, so being able to meet him down in Anderton's in Guildford was an absolute highlight, and listening to him speak for 2 hours pretty much on guitar playing, but also life and being creative and creatively was one of probably the most inspiring things I have ever heard. I was also really fortunate enough this year to go to the Berkeley DIY conference in Valencia, which again was a couple of days of being surrounded with the most amazing people, talking about music, talking about developing music, and has left me with a massive to-do list, but really one of the most useful things and one of the best investments I think I've ever made in my music career. And just as I record this podcast, the dates have been announced for next year, so I am certainly there. If you are a musician and you're listening to this podcast, you might want to check out the DIY EU conference sponsored by CD Baby. That's happening in Valencia in April, the beginning of April next year. Well worth the very cheap price of admission too, so certainly worth looking out for that if you are looking to develop your music business, your music career. The advice was excellent, and as I said, I had a massive to-do list, not even halfway through it, but it really helped me focus in on the things that I needed to be doing for the future of my music. And hopefully, maybe if some of you follow that, you will have seen some of those changes coming along and some of the things that I've been doing. I will also add that it's been a great year for my YouTube channel. Thanks to everyone who watches my YouTube channel. Thanks to everyone who comments on my YouTube channel. Starting to get a nice little community vibe going there with certain subscribers joining in the conversation now, asking questions. And it's, that's the one thing I really want to grow in 2019 is the community feel on my YouTube channel. So if you are into music, if you are into guitars, if you are into creativity, do go and check out the YouTube channel, which is Light Before Sound on youtube.com, Light Before Sound. And music projects, that's one of the things where I haven't quite reached my target this year. I was hoping to put out a couple more albums. They are kind of nearly finished, but not finished enough. And to be honest, that's one of my biggest disappointments of the year professionally. It was that I was unable to finish something which I was adamant I would finish at this time, the beginning of next year. Again, disappointed with that, but also feeling that it's not too far off. With a little bit stint of time that I've got over Christmas, that I should be able to get that at least closer to being finished and out there. I have a goal in my mind, which I really don't want to go beyond. So I'm kind of working towards that date. But what has set it back? Well, on a positive front on my career, as I mentioned before, I kind of went at the start of the year where things weren't looking too good to now having quite a lot of projects that I'm working on, quite a lot of really exciting projects that I'm working on, and a lot of teaching work, which, as you know, if you listen to this podcast, I really do love. Being able to teach at a great institution with some fantastic students has really buoyed me up for the future. And I always think of the expression, that we hear all the time, those who do, and those who can't teach. And I think that's absolute bullshit. And one of the reasons that I would say that is because there is another saying, which I think is more endemic to my situation. It is those who want to learn, those who want to develop, teach. Because the more you teach, the more you learn. And that is what I love. I love learning. I love finding out more things. And teaching is a way of constantly kicking my backside in terms of learning, keeping up with things, keeping my brain focused on what's going on, learning from other people, listening to other people. And that is what I love about it. It's never ending. The more you know about a subject, the more you realize there is to know about a subject. The more I know about music, the more I spend my time immersed in music. And remember, I've spent a lot of time in my life learning about music. The more things I discover, the more avenues there are. That's what's fascinating about it. And that's what's fascinating about any subject, really. The more you think you are an expert on it, the more you realize you know nothing. And maybe that's something that some of our politicians could maybe take heed of when they're saying that we don't need experts anymore. But let's not turn this into politics, because that's another one of the real negative things that has happened in 2018, and hopefully 2019 will be a change to normality and we can get back to some form of normality with all the clowns and jokers that are out there right now, hopefully ending up in prison or somewhere. Moving on to 2019, my plans are, if you've listened to the podcast over the last couple of weeks, I am doing away with the New Year's resolutions. I am doing away with the goals list. I'm focusing in on the 12-week year technique that I mentioned 3 podcasts ago. That's really going to be my focus this year, of breaking the year down into 4 chunks, each of 12 weeks. And those 12 weeks roughly equate to my year. But I'm also this time not really setting in stone any resolutions. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a spin on the resolutions and all that mentality, the goal-setting mentality that I have been advocating for years and years and years. And if you listen to the podcast, you know I've been a strong advocate over the years of setting goals and things like that. This year I'm going to try something different. So maybe I'll be the guinea pig for all of you guys, carry on as normal. But what I'm trying to do this year is impose some rules, impose a list of things that I'm not going to do. And that's a subtle difference. I've made a list, or I'm in the process of making a list of things I'm not going to do and things that I'm going to adhere to. Little rules, like, for example, from a dietary perspective, just having smaller plate. I'm not going to say I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. You know, those are the typical goals that I would tend to set and then fail miserably at them. This time I'm just going to say, I am just going to make some very small baby step statements and baby step rules. For example, not eating meat every day, maybe eating meat once a week, still eating fish, still eating everything else, just cutting down on meat free. These are just some examples that are coming off the top of my head of some of the things that I might consider. Or having a smaller plate, eating on a smaller plate. You know, these are not rocket science, things you've probably all heard before, and simple things to adhere to. One of the big ones for me, and I've alluded to this a few times over the last couple of podcasts, is removing myself from social media. Not entirely. Again, I try not to in my life go from these kind of black and white wills and won'ts. It's a sliding scale. I'm still going to be on social media. I'm still going to check my Facebook, possibly check Twitter a little bit less because it's such a nasty, horrible place. I realized it's not good for my mental health. I realized it's not good for my time. I realized it's not good for my productivity. And I realized how easy it is to get sucked into it. You know, that's the purpose. That's one of the things about Facebook. It's sucking you in. And I don't want that anymore in my life. So as opposed to a New Year's resolution saying I am not going to go on Facebook, you know, that you'd break that pretty quickly, I'm sure. That what I'm saying is I've removed Facebook from my phone. I tend to check Facebook on my computer, and for the new year is like I'm not going to check Facebook more than twice a day, which is still a lot compared to what you might think. And maybe I should be doing more, and maybe I will do more once. This is the other thing, is when you set these kind of small baby step goals, you achieve them, and then you can achieve more rather than saying a blanket no. Say I'm just going to whittle it down. And that's the thing that I suppose is my message that I'm doing for the New Year's. I'm whittling things down. I'm not cutting out everything. I'm not going on this complete Spartan-esque journey of cutting everything out, or I'm just making things smaller. I'm cutting things down, cutting things out. And instead of, again, setting goals of like I'm going to be writing 1 track a week, blah, blah, these things have worked for me in the past, but they're just not working for me right now. What I'm doing this year in my professional life is I am writing down the names of the projects that I want to finish, and just having a list of them, a list of the projects I want to finish on a piece of paper. Not necessarily goals that they will be done by here, blah, blah, blah. It's just looking at this very small piece of paper with a couple of goals on it. And that's the other thing I've done this year, is cut out. I used to sit there. It's going to be weird because this is something I've done every year pretty much for the last 25 years. But this year I'm not doing it. It does feel a little bit uneasy, where I would sit down in my brand new diary for 2019 and write down my to-do list and my goals list and say I'm going to finish this project, I'm going to write X tracks a week, and I go to the gym 3 times a week. It's so easy to write this down. And what I should have realized after 25 years is it does work sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time. And particularly now where I am thankfully so busy with work, I really do have to prioritize. And a lot of the things that I would like to do mean that I can't necessarily do them. So I would know that I'm going to fail on those goals. So I am picking a few of the most important things that I want to do and writing those on a piece of paper, because I always end up writing on a piece of paper or on my whiteboard behind me in the office, and just seeing them as projects, seeing the overriding things. And the thing about that is as well, is the projects all have titles, and it was the titles in a sense that excited me about the project. So if I just see the title by itself, I get excited about the project again, rather than seeing the title and the 15 to do things underneath it, which then goes, oh, I'm less so. I'm just seeing the title of the project. And that is the thing that is giving me that little bit of excitement again to jump in and make me want to jump in, rather than this goal list, rather than this massive to-do list. And again, this is a complete mindset change for me, completely and utterly. I'm really excited to see how it works. Of course, I'm only implementing this or trying this implementation for the first 12 weeks of the year. And if it goes completely haywire, then I may revert back to the other techniques that I have advocated and used in the past. I'm just trying to find if there is another way. And I'm just trying to find and discover myself and work within the parameters that work for me. And that is my message to you for this podcast, really, is sit down over the new year, maybe this year, not focus so much on the goals and the things that you need to do. Don't focus on the podcasts and those people like me telling you what to do. Just think about what you enjoy and how you enjoy working. What method works for you? How do you work best? How do you produce best? Is it getting up early in the morning? Is it going to bed late at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, when that's when you get your best, most creative work done? Are you a drawer, or are you a note taker? Are you a mind mapper, or are you a lister? Just think it through and really embrace who you are. Really embrace what you do. And this is particularly important for those of you who are striving to be artists and creative. And this is the one thing I'd say for you to 2019 is find your niche, find the areas of art or the world that excite you, and go for it. Maybe turn off the internet, turn off all those voices, the ones that then end up being in your head telling you that your work's not this and your work's not that and your work doesn't match this. Think about the great artists in the world. They had a vision and they stuck to their vision. They didn't have a vision that they put out there and everyone was telling them that it wasn't the same as XYZ visions. That's one of the downsides of the internet, one of the real downsides. Find your voice, find your inner vision, find the things that excite you, put them on the internet and move on. Don't listen to all the noise. Just move on and produce more art and find that inner thing. And maybe you are the only person in the world who likes it. What does that matter? Someone likes it. So on that point, I realize I have rambled on for quite a long time. So what's the takeaway from this episode? Well, first of all, as I've just said there, think about yourself this year. Think about your vision. Think about you. Think about what excites you. Think about what motivates you. Think about how you work, how you get the most excitement out of the things that you're doing. And to the point where you get into the state of flux, where there is no resistance, where you are working and suddenly 3 hours have gone and it feels like 2 minutes. Those are the states we need to be in. That's the states when we will be producing our best work, our best art, our best creativity, our best business planning. Those are the things that really excite us. And maybe 2019 is the year where we all jump into that, forget about the goals and see where we end up. On that note, I will sign off. Thanks again for all your support over the year. Thanks again for those who kick me up the backside again to get the podcast up and running again. We've got some really exciting guests coming in the new year, just arranging interview schedules for them. Really looking forward to doing that. Really looking forward to talking to you more in the future, and most importantly, starting the conversation. That is, if I did have a goal for 2019, it is to engage the conversation more with you guys. I want your guys' input into the podcast to become more to the front with it. Questions, be it you appearing on the podcast, whatever. I'd love to hear from you. Please do drop me a line at Neil@SpencerBruce, or find us on Facebook.com. There is Another Way podcast. Tell your friends, if you've got friends at this time of year who are uncertain, thinking about change, go back and check out some of the podcasts, get them to subscribe. There are some great interviews with some great people, which hopefully they will find inspiring. I know I certainly did. All it's left for me to say is wishing you and your families a very happy Christmas and an amazing and awesome 2019. I've been Brucey, and I will catch you later.